I am Divya Negi, your anchor for the session, and it is an honor to welcome you all here today as we embark on a pivotal discussion aimed at shaping the future of Chhattisgarh. The session is titled as Advancing Good Governance and Whole of Government Approach for Viksit Chhattisgarh. We are privileged and honored to be joined by a distinguished panel of speakers to guide us through this discussion. Together, we will explore strategies and insights into how good governance practices and a holistic approach across government sectors can catalyze the vision of a developed Chhattisgarh. So allow me to introduce them, and please join me in welcoming them onto the stage with a big round of applause. First, we have Mr. Rahul Bhagat, Secretary to the Honorable Chief Minister, Government of Chhattisgarh. Welcome, sir. Mr. Mike Hankey, US Consular General, and he'll be joining us online. Mr. Anirban Ghosh, Joint Managing Director from Transform Rural India Foundation. I would welcome you onto the stage, sir. Okay, we'll move forward. Dr. Vijay Pingle, CEO, Center for Effective Governance of Indian States, and Dr. Varsha Mamidi, Associate Professor, IIM Raipur. Welcome, ma'am. This esteemed panel of experts will be moderated by Mr. Prashant from Transform Rural India Foundation, who will facilitate the session and involve all of us in a dynamic and engaging discussion. Thank you. Okay. I would like to invite Dr. Vijay Pingle, CEO, Center for Effective Governance of Indian State, onto the stage. Okay. And Mr. Anirban Ghosh, Joint Managing Director from Transform Rural India Foundation. Please give a big round of applause. As I said, this esteemed panel of experts will be moderated by Mr. Prashant from Transform Rural India Foundation, who will facilitate the session and involve all of us in a dynamic and engaging discussion. Thank you. Looking forward to an enriching discussion. Over to you, Mr. Prashant.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Divya, for that brief intro. Again, I welcome all our esteemed guests and audience today for this India Rural Colloquy, Chhattisgarh 2024 chapter. And in this thematic session, we are going to delve into advancing good governance through whole of government approach. We all know that India is moving towards becoming the third largest economy. By 2030, it has set itself a target of achieving $5 trillion economy. And by 2047, probably we'll be crossing $30 trillion as well. So I would like to pose a question here. Can we really achieve this target if we are taking a siloed approaches? If we are following a non-integrated approach here. So if we are not following the whole of government approach. So this is a question what we are posing to the panelists, and we'll be delving into the good best practices. We also have Mr. Mike Hankey, who is Consul General US, who has joined us online today. We'll also exploring some of the best international practices in this. So moving forward, my first question is to Mr. Rahul Bhagat sir. Sir, Chhattisgarh government, as you mentioned in your inaugural speech, it has established the Department of Good Governance and Convergence. Probably it is first of its kind in the entire country. What exactly is the vision of the government? And the government of India has also set this narrative, Viksit Bharat, at 2047 now. And I believe Chhattisgarh is also aligned with it. So what is the vision and strategy of the government of Chhattisgarh in achieving this Viksit, developed state by 2047 through the good governance and the convergence department?
Thank you. Yeah, of course, I mean, this is when this government came actually, and this new department was created by the government, Department of Good Governance and Convergence. And in the budget this year, the government has adopted that by November 1st, we will be launching Vision 2047 Chhattisgarh, and which is very much aligned with Government of India's vision. And it's a long process. It's a collaborative process. It's a participatory process where we are involving everybody from all walks of life. Completely जन भागीदारी की मदद से हम अपना vision document बना रहे हैं. We are also involving all the stakeholders, and continuous different working groups have been formed, and all these working groups are on different topics, on different segments of the vision: health, education, good governance, and tribal, forest, all the departments, tourism, सभी का अपना अपना एक working group बना हुआ है. And the thrust of this whole creation of this document is how we'll be handling the challenges in 2047. What will be the shape of the economy, shape of the developmental model, shape of the government system, local government system, and इन सभी चीज़ों को ध्यान में रखते हुए हम विजन डॉक्यूमेंट बना रहे हैं. बट नॉट टू से दैट कि इसकी पर्सपेक्टिव्स हैं, डिफरेंट माइलस्टोन्स हैं. इट्स नॉट लाइक 2047 को अचीव करने के लिए चेंजेस अभी से लाने पड़ेंगे हमें. वी नीड टू स्टार्ट चेंज फ्रॉम टुडे इटसेल्फ, और वो अभी की पॉलिसी एंड प्रायोरिटीज़ का पार्ट होना चाहिए. और इसीलिए हमने इनको ब्रॉडली शॉर्ट टर्म, मिडिल टर्म एंड लॉन्ग टर्म में डिवाइड किया है, सो दैट short-term achievements will be a milestone of maybe 5 years or 6 years, and then 10 years, and then maybe 15 years and 12 years. So इस तरह से हमने इसको स्टार्ट किया है. एंड ऑफ कोर्स उसमें बहुत सारी एक्टिविटी भी हमने इन्वॉल्व किया है, स्टूडेंट्स के लिए, फार्मर्स के लिए, वुमेन, पूरे आधी आबादी के लिए, जो हमारे प्रबुद्ध जन हैं, दोज हु आर गुड awarded people of various sectors, dance, music, आयुर्वेदा, साइंस, कल्चर, सभी को हमने इन्वॉल्व किया है, सो दैट वी गेट अ रियल फीडबैक फ्रॉम द ग्राउंड, एंड विद देयर एक्सपीरियंस एंड विजडम दैट शुड बिकम पार्ट ऑफ आवर विकसित छत्तीसगढ़ विजन 2047. थैंक यू.
Thank you, sir, for those initial comments. I think we have Mike here today with us. Mike, you must be aware of the development narrative of the government of India, that's a developed nation by 2047, right? So what are some of the best practices across the world which you have experienced and which you think might be helpful to adopt in the context of a state like Chhattisgarh to promote the good governance policies?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me, and hello to all my friends out there in Chhattisgarh. It's always great when I get out to Raipur, and I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person. The overlapping interest that we have between the United States and India to develop each of our economies, to bring in all the people from rural and urban backgrounds, from every demographic and community background, and to bring inclusive growth to everyone. That's an overlapping goal that both of our countries share. And I think we're at a great opportunity right now. I've seen the Chhattisgarh budget, for example. It's got higher than average allocations compared to other states in education and health and urban development and energy. So I really think the moment is now for us to apply some of those best practices that you asked about. One of the ones that I saw just in 2023, the Raipur district collector did a great program working with social media influencers and doing a studio training to help individual citizens see how they could implement outreach programs and make information more readily available to citizens in rural areas. I was very impressed by that. And another one that I would quickly just mention is the work that we're doing collaborating between officials in Chhattisgarh in the health system and the health sector especially, and our U.S. Agency for International Development, really trying to assess data at the most local level to use the best practice of bringing data, information, science to applying some of the health system solutions, in this case to tuberculosis, and what we've done to collaborate with partners in the health ministry and in community organizations in rural areas of Chhattisgarh. That's been a best practice worldwide for us. We've seen it working in Bametra and Kabirdham districts there in Chhattisgarh, and I would say one that we'd want to continue.
Okay, great, Mike, for that. I'll have a few more questions on this, Mike. Maybe we'll take the initial opinions of other panelists, and then I'll come to you later on this.
I'm here. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. As every panelist, and even during our inaugural session, everyone mentioned that rural is the heart of India. Without rural development, rural transformation, we cannot really achieve the goal of Viksit or developed nation by 2047. That's everyone's understanding, and we have come to a single platform on that. So, and TRI is also working in the rural space. And my question is to Mr. Anirban. What kind of good governance initiatives at the grassroots we can adopt? And also, what is the localization model of TRI, particularly the locality compacts which TRI is promoting, and also some of the collaborative platforms what TRI has co-designed and co-demonstrated with the government. So you can elaborate on that.
Yeah. So I think I'll first start with, at the people like us, whether we are at the policy space or whether we are in a civil society space, we talk about collaboration, convergence, but from the perspective and the eyes of the Didi on the ground, it is a continuum for her. If we ask her, education of her child or health or her livelihoods, all of those are important for her. It might be very different departments in a public sector, or for civil society, it might be specialized organizations who are health organizations and who are livelihood organizations, and we do only this. But for the lives of the women and for their dreams and aspiration of their next generation, they are completely connected. And intuitively we realized long time back, but of late, actually science is also saying the same, that nutrition in the first 1,000 days so connected to the cognitive development, which eventually is a good predictor of the educational outcomes and the eventual the occupational outcomes that person has. There are several studies which are which has correlated the first 1,000 days of life to a lifetime economic opportunities of that person. And every day there are more and more studies which keep on showing the strong interconnectedness of these issues on the ground. So what I'm saying, from the people's perspective itself, they are not different in their minds. The way it is different in our minds, it is not different in their minds. Health and education and livelihoods are not different things for them. B, what I am saying is science also says the same thing. So when we are looking at creating a grassroots governance system, we need to leverage this innate understanding which people have on the ground. For them, these are not different things. So therefore, what one attempts to do is to strengthen the decentralized planning processes which are there. Somehow, last several decades, we have given up on the the localized panchayat efforts, and so whereas my sense is last 5-7 years again there is a renewed focus to look at what Rahulji was just saying in the inaugural space, that how can the dreams and aspiration of the people on the ground come up into policy, into schemes, programs. So therefore, several programs I am seeing are getting strengthened. For example, last year there is a joint engagement of the Village Prosperity and Resilience Plan, the VPRP, getting integrated with the GPDP. Both Panchayati Raj Ministry and the Rural Development Ministry jointly are working on this whole issue, where women's aspirations and plan are getting integrated into the GPDP, and actually there is a tech architecture being created at the back end where both these digitally available plans will sync with each other, so that automatically they would be integrated into the e-Gram Swaraj portal, which actually does the allocation. So our experience on the ground, wherever these structural spaces we have been able to provide to women, there have been examples of places where typically these kind of decentralized plans were around 2 or 3 sectors. From there it has gone to 19-20 sectors. The size of the plan has increased over a period of time, and interestingly, as they have engaged with the block administration and the district administration through a structured program of panchayats and the CLFs working with the block and district administration, translations from typically 15 to 20% is the typical translation which happens without any engagement. But with this type of an engagement, translations we have been able to bump up to more than 2/3, several places even more than 75% of the plans have been translated. So what I am saying is that there have to be some structural solutions, but it has to ride on the capacities which have been built in the self-help group system, and also capacities to be built at the sarpanch and the panch level of basically the elected representatives of the PRIs. So this, wherever in 33 districts across different states, and each state has a different Panchayati Raj Act. So despite those variations, our results on the ground we are seeing is uniform. There's expansion in the diversity of plans, there's expansion in the quantum of plans, and there is a large amount of plans which are getting translated. And interestingly, in Chhattisgarh, the efforts which are happening, women are actually doing several integrated land and water planning. Women themselves are doing, it is getting linked to GIS maps, and which is getting invested by MGNREG. So the possibilities and the competencies of women and leaders on the ground is immense. We just need to provide a little bit of a structural solutions with capacity building support. So I think there is a way forward, and in this state itself, in the difficult zones, the Naxalite prone zones, we are actually seeing a lot of results.
Okay, structural gaps, I just want to expand on that. Rightly mentioned that we have to fill those gaps, and the results are immense. So what kind of platforms can be envisaged with aspects like good governance, to promote the aspects like good governance at the...
So basically, one is looking at 3 to 4 critical structures, and all of them are approved by the Government of India. One is the cluster level federations working very closely with the panchayats, and there is something called a GPCC, the Gram Panchayat Coordination Committee. Most places it is structurally there, but usme what in Hindi we say na, pratima hai lekin usme pran pratishtha nahi hai. So the SHG women are actually doing the pran pratishtha there. They are going in, and without even external support, just their participation in the GPCC itself is making GPCs is more active. The second structure which one is looking at is the block level coordination committee, the BLCC, headed by the BDO or CEO of the block panchayat, and they bringing in all departments where the plans are getting reviewed. So all the village level, Gram Panchayat level plans are integrated, and that is getting reviewed. And once in a quarter, a district level review is required. There's these three things. If it is done along with the decentralized plans, we would be able to get massive outlier results. The VPRP itself, this year, I'm telling you the country's data, total out of the 10 crore women who are part of the self-help group movement, 4.77 crore women participated in the village prosperity and resilience plan. And the numbers in Chhattisgarh also are very high. Second, there are 1.58 crore activities which were identified by the women, and they have been digitally captured in an application run by the Ministry of Rural Development. So all that is required is little bit of support to translate those whatever proportion of the 1.58 crore activities are in Chhattisgarh. All that we require is गांव के aspiration के हिसाब से plan आ चुका है. Only we have to ensure that we fit it into schemes, and all those plans which we have seen there are schemes of government, of the state government and the national government, which can support those plans. So that is the only little bit support we need to provide to the communities to really translate their aspirations.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Anirban, for that. So Mike did mention about data. And we also have a lot of development things happening at the grassroots. But how do we capture all these things? My next question is to Dr. Vijay Pingle, who is the CEO of SEGIS. I think there is a lot of activities being done across India, across Chhattisgarh. And but somewhere there is a problem of capturing all those things. And outcome-oriented or result-oriented approach, sometimes we lack because we don't have the data, right? So I think SEGIS is working in this space. It has put itself a approach and vision like outcome measurement and personal management, everything. So how is SEGIS doing to promote outcome-oriented, result-oriented development, and particularly in the space of good governance and convergence?
Thank you, Prashant, and thank you first of all the TRI and IIM for arranging this session and inviting me there, giving opportunity to speak about what we think about this. So I'll just take a recap on what you said. You said whether that dream of achieving that certain level of economy is achievable, one. Then Rahul mentioned about Department of Good Governance, then about data, and about just I heard from Anirban that the plans are ready, but you need to give that push from the schemes and all that. Had you asked me this question maybe 7 years back, I would not have been able to answer to this question. 17 years being part of government and IAS, I intuitively used to feel there is something that's lacking there. And what is that? It was very difficult to pinpoint because all the time you are running on the treadmill, you're just trying to do something urgent and not taking pause to get into the reasons behind that. And unfortunately, whatever training systems we have, we don't have anywhere the design to think about the system, a kind of training to think about the system. And that was the reason then I thought, I always say there are, in those officers who want to do good things in the government, there are always two sides. One, they understand, like Rahul had to go just out and attend a call. They understand these urgent things are important. You cannot let the ball drop on that. But somewhere inside, deep inside, we also feel that you need to work on long-term things. And what long-term things are there? So without any clear idea, but just with intuition, I decided to come out, join the private, and then this is the non-profit where I'm there for 3 years. But one good thing happened to me. was I met Professor Karthik Muralidharan. Don't know how many of you have heard about him. He is one of the co-founders of CGs, and he has recently come out with the book Accelerating India's Development. So after meeting with him, I just thought like intuition meeting research, the thing that I could not give words to. Finally, there is somebody who has done a lot of work in that, and it came to that level. So I just give this brief background because I thought this is important to understand. It's somewhere, one officer I was meeting some time back, and some of colleagues started talking about ideas. The officer said, boss, all these files in front of me on the table are ideas. Tell me how to convert them on ground. How to take to the people. And everything that we understand now, it comes to the something called as lack of capacity of the government to deliver on its promises. A little step back on that is, what is this capacity and why we lack that capacity? We probably inherited a system at the time of independence which was working for one or two things, mainly the revenue collection for foreign government. And anything around that, maintaining law and orders, railways, all these things, 5 important departments those days. Then universal franchise came in, and our responsibilities became universal. We somehow had a system on which we gave so much load of expectations. A good thing to have universal franchise, but the expectation of that mandate was huge. And there is something in civil engineering, we call it premature load bearing. That's what happened with the system. We thought, in idealism and all that, we thought we will be able to do the things, but somehow, over all these years, the expectations have grown. We are running to meet the expectation. That's what I said initially. Everybody is running to meet those expectations, but we have not really invested enough in that capacity. And what is that capacity? Is it something very difficult, something rocket science? No. It's simple common sense. आप जब भी किसी सरकारी ऑफिस में जाएंगे, आपको लगता है ये चीज़ ऐसे होनी चाहिए, common sense के लिए ये होनी चाहिए. And that does not happen. And what is that? If you study the successful organizations around the world, what is that common sense? They do the goal setting better. They have proper data. They go into data collection of why they are collecting the data, what is that they are collecting, for whom. And all these questions are very sensibly thought about and addressed. So 3 pillars that we in CGs believe in. If you work on that, any department, any sector, rural development, education, health, industry, ultimately government is the reality of the day. And you cannot do away with the government. Whatever you and me and NGOs and all this ecosystem tries to do, it's just supplementing that. At scale, things can happen with the government. And unless we work on the capacity of the government, which is under, I was just explaining 3 pillars, goals setting and measurement of the goals, and 2 kind of resources for that. One is financial resources, another is human resources. So financial resources, we miss this point many a times. We are a poor government of poor country. GDP wise, absolute figures we hear, but per capita GDP wise, we are somewhere lagging far behind. And how much of that GDP we mobilize as taxes? 17%. 17% throughout India, all the governments together. Whereas in all these developed countries, it is somewhere between 40-45% of the GDP. They are already per capita wise higher level, and so they have the capacity to invest those resources. We have resources very limited, and we waste them because we don't have capacity to take care of the spending properly. And accordingly, to train the human resources for that, it's a huge task. And that's where, as you said, Prashant, we are trying to help, again, the accountability and openness. I believe that comes, okay, there is no big design. All this system has not decided to become opaque and not to share the data and all that. We don't come together and discuss and plan about it. At individual level, we know my data quality is doubtful. I'm not very sure about this data quality. How can I share with public? Somewhere in the background, this doubt about your own data, doubt about your capacity to deliver, all that is the reason for this opaqueness in the government, for hesitation to kind of take on new things or talk definitively about the things. So whatever you do, all these ideas, whatever gets measured, gets done. That's true as far as government is concerned. And what measurement systems we have at present are really, we had some of the best measurement systems in the world, but are they continuing today? Second, are they available at the state government level? Are they available at the local body government level? It's mainly, many times I have seen in the government, sorry for saying that, many times in the government we collect the data to keep the boss happy. Whether that data is useful on the ground or not, whether you mentioned about the Didi on the ground, is Didi able to use that data? Or she is just sending the data and thinking this is extra work for me? When she will be able to use that data at local level, local decision making. And these systems are somewhere lacking in the government as of now. And these are the areas. Sorry, I was a little broad on that, but these are the areas where we are trying to work. There is immense work which is happening, be it collecting the citizen level data for triangulation with the administrative data in one of the states. We have conducted that. We are conducting the process, fast moving outputs data collection through outbound call centers. We generally have inbound call centers in government, but we don't reach out to people. We don't collect the data for our triangulation, our use. So this kind of lot of experiments we have done, successfully we have done, in partnership with the governments, in partnership with the other people. A lot of people are involved in this. So unless we set the, one point is, unless we take care of this limited capacity of state, all our dreams, all our objectives are not, we are not going to achieve that as in the desired way and in desired timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Truly, data is not one-sided actually. I mean, it has to be a two-way communication. It's not just about collection, it's also about the quality and how effectively we are using it. And it also forms one of the critical aspects of promoting the good governance. Also for good governance, I believe the critical aspects are like ensuring the transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. So my next question goes to Dr. Varsha Mamidi. So in the space of academics, what do you think are the critical factors which can promote good governance? And maybe you can highlight some of the best models existing from your research and the academic background.
Thank you, Prashantji, and good evening, good afternoon all. There's a lot of research that has been happening, especially in the public policy area and governance. But what comes to forefront are the four main critical factors that I would think. Some of it, Vijayji and Anirbanji have mentioned already. One of them that I would think is interdepartmental collaboration and coordination. That's one thing. Chhattisgarh government has already been, working in that space by creating this good governance department. So I feel that interdepartmental communication collaboration is one thing that is very important. But what is normally happening, and Vijayji, you are a bureaucrat yourself, you were a bureaucrat yourself. So, bureaucrats have a lot of knowledge about the parameters that are important in terms of or drive the shared outcomes. But what happens in the process is, it is not communicated properly and it doesn't reach the lower levels of the pyramid. If you think about, the different layers that are there when it comes to, from the bureaucrats or people who are the idea generators to, what Anirbanji was mentioning, the Didis on the ground. So I feel, there is some kind of a communication gap that you also mentioned. So trying to reach out to the last layer of the pyramid is something that is a critical factor. So interdepartmental collaboration is important, but also ensuring that it reaches to the last layer of the pyramid is one of the important aspect. What normally happens is, again, like you mentioned, a lot of ideas are generated, but when it comes to the communication part of it, when it comes to the implementation part of it, somewhere down the line it is somehow lost. So, you know, having a good feedback loop wherever we are trying to, you know, communicate these ideas, having a good feedback loop is one of the important things that I feel. And you did mention about the reviews that you are conducting. So that kind of, you know, all the layers of the pyramid, it is data driven, you said, but the data has whatever data that the Didi is generating, and the feedback that she is providing is very important when it comes to implementing these policies. That's one thing. Second, I feel is the stakeholder engagement. When we talk about stakeholder engagement, it could be people on the ground. It could also be bureaucrats like, you know, who generate the ideas. They know the parameters of the shared outcomes. They know the targets. You know, when it comes to citizens' engagement, when it comes to the staff in the departments themselves, engagement of that. So all this is also very important. And the third thing that comes to my mind is, you know, the projects that are being, or the implementation that is happening is not happening at a, you know, not taken as a project. I come from IT experience, so worked as a project manager. So for us, when we were implementing the projects, it was, you know, the processes were set up in such a way that the communication was very simple and uniform. So that uniformity in communication doesn't exist. I mean, you have data, you have communication systems, but that uniformity and simplicity is something that is lacking, is what I feel. So if everything is treated as a project, like, you know, generally it happens in the industry where, you know, it is, you have certain project management approaches that you take. So when you're implementing, if you have that kind of a skill, if you're developing that skill, you know, you talked about capacity building. So if you're developing that kind of skill in individuals, that they can implement it as a project, I think that is also one of the critical factors. And all the policies that are made, I think, should be data driven. You did mention that it is all data, but it has to be data driven. Data driven in the sense, you know, whatever data we are generating, the policies have to be based on that data. So these are the four factors that I feel are critical to successful implementation and successful good governance. Thank you.
Ma'am. Bhagat sir, we also have, the department also looks after the convergence, right? And we have academia here, we have international partners, and we have development organizations. We have governments from other countries as well. So do you really think convergence is a possibility given the multiple stakeholders, the kind of diversity they have, the kind of experience they have, and particularly given the context of Chhattisgarh, what kind of challenges do you envisage in achieving this convergence? Because we all know that without convergence or going by the siloed approaches, we are going nowhere actually. So what exactly are the challenges and how these organizations can pitch in?
Yeah, true. See, today convergence is not an option, it's a compulsion, in fact, I would say. Without convergence, we can't move. You know, any scheme of government of Chhattisgarh or government of India will pick up, you'll find mostly it is more than 2-3 departments, those who are involved. So my work here in government of Chhattisgarh is to bring all of them together. Fortunately, we have a department now, governance and convergence. So before this department, it would have been difficult for different departments to come together, sit together and discuss. Now, this is one of my top agenda in the government today, that I call all the, for example, एक छोटा सा उदाहरण मैं देता हूँ कि माननीय मुख्यमंत्री ने घोषणा की कि हम अपने यहाँ गौ अभयारण्य बनाएंगे, जहाँ पे जो स्ट्रे कैटल्स हैं हमारे रोड पे, बहुत सारे आप देखते होंगे ट्रैफिक में बहुत बाधा आता है उससे, गाय रोड के ऊपर बैठी रहती है, अदर एनिमल्स आर ऑल्सो देयर. सो अब ये एक परिकल्पना है कि हम गौ अभयारण्य बनाएंगे. अब इसको करने के लिए we need to bring lot of departments together. One is Department of Veterinary, Department of Forest, Department of Revenue, maybe transport, traffic, police. All of them have to come together, identify a place, a piece of land where these animals can be properly kept, their health is taken care of, their food is taken care of, they get proper space for, moving out and naturally grazing on the ground and all that. So I called all of them together, and then we had NGOs also. So I brought some of the NGOs, those who are working in the field of, the Gau Abhayaran and all. So all of them we sat together, and one thought came, and then a refinement of thought, and then problems of forest department, problems of revenue department, availability of land, and many things, availability of veterinary doctors. So finally we have reached to a place now, to a conclusion now that we can start it. So what I wanted to tell is that without convergence, it is very difficult to come up with any good solution. We may have various policies, we may have various ideas, but उसको ग्राउंड पे लाने के लिए सभी विभागों को एक साथ बैठना ज़रूरी है. And not only departments, there are many research organizations, many engineering colleges, management colleges like I am Raipur, TRI, like institutions and CGIS. So सभी को एक साथ लाके तब जाके एक holistic एक solution निकलता है उसका. और and when the partners are involved in the policy making and in the process, उसका action भी ground पे easy होता है. Otherwise, if one department thinks of something to implement on the ground, the other department does not cooperate or is not aware of that plan or that policy or that action, ground पे it will not get reflected. It is very difficult. Small things require different departments to come together and work together. So without engaging different departments, without collaborating, without convergence, I think it will be very difficult to implement policies and bring visible change in the ground. Thank you.
Sir, there is a question for you, continuing to that. We always see the convergence at the state level or at the national level we speak of, but convergence at the district or the local level is somewhere missing. What is your opinion on that? And also there is a document on convergence of the programs, but it remains only to the documents sometimes. Practical implementation of it is not seen at the grassroots. So what is your take on that, sir?
No, same thing. I told, now the government has created this department. So the vision is there to do it. It was not earlier. So it has started just now. I think few months back the department has been created. So what I see that it will percolate down to districts also. Once things are getting driven from state level, all the collectors are involved. For example, अभी हम लोग जन भागीदारी के मदद से विकसित भारत छत्तीसगढ़ will creating the document of vision 2047 for Chhattisgarh. So most of the collectors, he is a witness to that. They were involved virtually, taking their feedback and understanding. Ultimately, the things will be delivered at the level of districts, and the district collectors are the nodal, So they should be aware of what is happening in the vision document itself, so that they are a party to it. They are fully engaged in creating that document. So right from the beginning, convergence is visible. So once this is done, I think once the policy is documented and it goes to it is given to the public, and at the time of implementation, all these collectors will own it actually, because they have been part of this document, creation of the document, and this is how we are doing a lot of convergence processes in the state today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mike, we also have a question for you, and before that, I have a question for you. You did mention that US is already involved in Chhattisgarh through some of the initiatives in Bemetra and Kavarda, right? So, and also US intervention through US aid facilitated by Ford and Rockefeller Foundation for the Green Revolution is already here. So, there is a question for you. Is there any plan to evaluate some of these programs' impact? And also, is there any plan to take this up in the food systems, particularly the nutrition and health?
No, it's a great question. Just doing the work without evaluation is maybe missing half of the picture. So I'm glad that you raised that, because for the decades that USAID has worked across the country, but especially in Chhattisgarh, we bring in the data each time that we complete a project, or even while we're running it, to help inform the next. Some of that has led to what some of my fellow panelists have talked about in terms of translating ideas into action. When you take a look at some nursing training that we've done in the healthcare field, that was a specific program that we did in Chhattisgarh to elevate the skills of nursing professionals based on the feedback that we had taken from earlier community-based outreach, especially on tuberculosis. The ideas focus and the governance focus that I've heard from some of my fellow panelists is particularly attractive. For us, what we try to do is copy models that we've seen work well. And one of them that's worked very well across the whole Western Indian region, including Chhattisgarh, is mentoring programs that bring in rural workers, especially women who can have such a key leadership role. We worked especially with local and district level government officials in Maharashtra to train them on sustainable agricultural practices and climate-friendly regulation. How do you make regulation support the practices in the field? And then how do practices help inform that regulation? And after training 100 women and government officials, women and men government officials, there are now practices put into place in rural areas of Maharashtra that we would like to replicate in Chhattisgarh to help support that rural development level that's so important. A similar way is when you look at mentoring that can be done. We had a 6-month program that tied together rural women leaders in agriculture and climate resilience with global leaders in the same fields to provide feedback, like you're talking about with evaluation. What's worked well? What are best practices? And again, that mentor pairing is something that's incredibly powerful, because no single district anywhere needs to do it alone. In our country, we could certainly learn from India's experience with data digitization in rural areas, from the Aadhaar system and UPI and the great power that comes with that. And likewise, India, we'd be happy to connect you with experts from the US or other parts of the world.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for that. We have a question on good governance at the rural level. I think this is more relevant to you, Anirban. So we all speak of the big languages on good governance. Are we really integrating the traditional knowledge and wisdom which was existing previously in our current narrative of the good governance and or the convergence or the development for that matter?
So these are questions coming from the audience.
Yes, these are the questions coming from the audience,
Great.
actually.
So great, we are integrating some questions from the audience. So, I think Mike also alluded to that something like the Meeta-Neel program was born in Chhattisgarh, so which eventually became the ASHA effort across the country. So Chhattisgarh has already been place for traditional knowledge being honed in a manner and eventually feed into national policy. And I think a lot of efforts are already on, especially the deep engagement which Bihan has, the Chhattisgarh SRLM has across the state, where women are able to come up and engage, bring in their own traditional understanding. One very recent engagement we had with the watershed development, where the planning was being done at a village level, where people came in and started doing their plot by plot plans in terms of the land and water engagement. So there, naturally people have lot of wisdom on their own. Traditionally उनको पता है किधर से पानी आता है, what कौन सा जगह erode हो रहा है, क्या हो रहा है. Traditionally they have that knowledge, but several times when we are designing programs or maybe in the process of implementation of the program, that piece of the traditional knowledge is overwritten and overridden by the technical knowledge expertise which comes in. The Manrega GRS would assume a greater technical role than the traditional knowledge, and in reality actually the farmer and a middle-aged farmer would be knowing far more than the GRS who has got a diploma degree from somewhere and a few trainings. They don't have that practical insight. Similarly, child rearing, we look at IYCF practices. So there, older lady in the village would be knowing far more than a young, health extension worker who is placed there. So there are those gaps, but there is lot of potential as we strengthen the community resilience. We say this is the community resilience compact, the village level organization, the cluster level federations on one side who have very strong innate knowledge, collaborating very strongly with the Gram Panchayats and the last mile of the district and block administration. So this is the triangular compact which one attempts to create, where the lot of this traditional knowledge is also built into the programs and the efforts which are doing on the ground. But again, these processes are slow, they are human process intensive, so there needs to be the question which is there in front of us is, how do you make it viral? How do you use the digital technologies? How can great success of one place become inspiration and motivation from other villages and other clusters? So those are new ways of thinking. How do we scale up more rapidly? But individual solutions, if you say, are already there.
Yeah, true. I mean, there is already a inherent knowledge exists within the community, also within the people. But how do we capture those knowledge and those insights? And to this part, I think citizen engagement, active citizen engagement is more critical. And we also have a question on citizen engagement here. I think I want to pose this question to Dr. Vijay Pingleji. Without citizen engagement, we cannot achieve anything, right? And as you rightly mentioned, that it has to be a two-way communication. Can you suggest few of the good models which we can try out in Chhattisgarh to actually enhance the citizen engagement? You did mention few of the things, but I think you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, thanks. That's a very good question. Okay, so, as I said, ideas are a lot. How to convert them into action is the real challenge. In every field you will see that. So this idea of citizen engagement is not new. It's just everybody is talking about that. And how do we do that? For example, as NGOs or some philanthropy organizations, they try to go, nothing against that, it is required, but they go, and many times in a small sphere, we try to replace the government. And you work in one village, one school, one hospital, and that way you try to create some excellence at that local level by very good citizen engagement. And that's where we talk about all these pilots, models which have worked. But who should be engaging with the citizen is actually the government. It's like any private sector company, the consumer. The government is there, a kind of, I will go and make a bolder statement that government is just like a middle layer, like somebody between the public and the welfare. They are there to serve the public, that we all know. So for us, how to make government engage with the people in a more systematic way, in a more frequent way, to get the feedback that you mentioned there. So two initiatives that we try to bring in. One is I mentioned already, maybe I can elaborate a bit on that. We mostly rely on the data which is coming through your official channels for taking decisions. Where is that mechanism to get feedback from the people on what you are doing? It may not be the feedback in designing of the policy, but what's happening? Is it working there or not? Again, many times in government, when it comes to taking data or engaging the people, many people say it's census based. We go and kind of interview everyone. That's not the way. There is science behind that, how you collect the data, how you sample, choose the sample. So one of the initiatives is key performance indicator surveys, we call. All these Government of India surveys, they come once in 5 years or 10 years, and many times we have seen, and there are some private surveys also institutionalized now. They come maybe every year. But when the private survey or somebody from NGO doing that survey, the results come in, the first reaction of the governments is, if it is not favorable to me, then I will say it's not, I'll try to refute it. I'll try to brush it aside. But state governments especially don't have a mechanism to collect systematic data from the people, representative data, a granular level data where you can actually dissect it at the level of maybe village or at least block and get general insight about what you are doing and how you use that data for course correcting your own policies. Rather than believing completely on the administrative data, which we know due to many reasons, the data may not be good quality. How you triangulate that? For example, one idea that we are trying to, you ask about district level administration, how convergence to bring the convergence. Can you provide the district collector a citizen feedback from one channel and the administrative data is in front of the collector? And that's what we some time back discussed. And just show initially the divergence between these two data sets and just rank them on the basis of that divergence. Somebody is hugely away from there's a huge difference between the citizen feedback and your own data. You generally data says 100% implementation ho gaya. Kuch log, to make it more real, may say 99%, 90%. But then the citizen level data will tell you a different story. How to use that for regular decision making, day-to-day administration? There will be some slow moving indicators. For that we suggest once in a year third party. Again, third party surveys are more important. Many times departments, you cannot be judged in your own case. Departments, they themselves implement this, they themselves give the feedback and they say we have done 100%. At least in government there is planning department, or now here convergence department is there. These departments have been given the mandate that they should be third party evaluators of what's going and taking this feedback from the people. So how to strengthen that mechanism, how to get more of that data. Another example, I said high frequency monitoring, and that's another thing that we are discussing here also. How to convert those call centers into outbound call centers where we move the fast moving indicators are collected from the citizen level. If some program is going immediately, outcomes may take time, but has the ration reached on time? Has the supplies reached on time? Has that child got the ration in the Anganwadi center? This data collected directly from the citizens, that way engaging the citizens into the feedback is the way we look at that as a systemic development.
Okay, thank you. I think we also have people joined from across Chhattisgarh here, particularly community members. And we have a question from them as well. Palash, do we have a team from Bakawan block? Can they be projected on screen to ask their question? ठीक है, so एक बार आप देख लो उसको, अगर कनेक्ट कर पा रहे हैं तो then project कर सकते हैं. Otherwise we can move on with the next set of questions here. I think there is very interesting thing. Yeah, okay, they already are here. नमस्ते दीदी, सभी को नमस्ते. थोड़ा सा आप जोर से बोलिएगा.
तो मेरा नमस्ते, मेरा नाम है शांतिनाग, ग्राम पंचायत टलनार और जिला बस्तर, ब्लॉक बकाउंट में मैं CLA PHR के पद में पदस्थ हूँ। और मेरा ये सवाल है कि हम एक विकसित छत्तीसगढ़ की आकांक्षा रखते हैं जहाँ बेहतर जीवन के लिए सभी आवश्यक सार्वजनिक सेवाओं तक हमारी पहुंच हो, लेकिन हम नागरिक और समुदाय के रूप में मुख्य धारा की विकासात्मक योजना में कैसे शामिल हो सकते हैं?
बहुत ही वैलिड सवाल आपने पूछा है. इट्स ओपन फॉर ऑल द पैनलिस्ट. हु वांट्स टू टेक दिस क्वेश्चन? Yeah, Mike, we have a question from the community that people aspire for Viksit Chhattisgarh, but how can community and other stakeholders, particularly from the grassroots, can be involved in this? Who wants to take the question? It's open question. Anirban, yes.
देखिए दीदी, विकसित छत्तीसगढ़ बन सकता है अपना गांव विकसित होगा तब. हमारा छत्तीसगढ़ का आबादी और अधिकतर आबादी, राहुल जी सुबह भी बोल रहे थे, अधिकतर आबादी छत्तीसगढ़ का गांव में रहता है. तो विकसित छत्तीसगढ़ करना है तो भाई गांव विकसित करना है. अच्छा, गांव कैसे विकसित होगा? मैडम सुबह पूछ रही थी गांव का विकास का मॉडल क्या है. शहर जैसे गांव होना है या गांव में जो रह रहे हैं उनके सपनों का गांव बनना है? तो अपना तो जो समझ है, जो अपना सपना बनाना तो अपना काम है. तो हर गांव में आप लोग CLF में जुड़े हुए हैं, CLF के महिलाएं हर गांव में हैं, वहाँ पर अपना जो सपना, अपने CLF स्तर पे भी आपने सपना देखा होगा, वो सपना को लेके कार्यक्रम बनाने पड़ेंगे. एक एक जो सपने में आपने शायद प्रायोरिटी एरिया भी निकाला होगा, अपने सपनों का क्या क्या मुद्दों पे काम करना है, और उसके हिसाब से हर साल का गतिविधि हम लोग को चयन करना पड़ेगा, गतिविधि निकालना पड़ेगा. अपना जो भी जितना पैसा, जितना सरकार के तरफ से हमारा आवंटन है, उस आवंटन के हिसाब से गतिविधि निकालना पड़ेगा. अच्छा, हम लोग इधर से क्या कर सकते हैं? आपने जो गतिविधि बनाया उस गतिविधि को साकार करने के लिए हम यहाँ से मदद कर सकते हैं. हम जिला स्तर से, ब्लॉक स्तर से वो मदद कर सकते हैं. लेकिन सपना को देखना और सपना के अवज पे काम करना, ये तो गाँव के दीदी को करना पड़ेगा. और कई ऐसे चीज़ हैं जिसमें सरकार का पैसा नहीं चाहिए. आपका घरेलू हिंसा हो रही है तो उसमें सरकार का पैसा नहीं चाहिए, वो तो आपको गांव में दीदी लोग को सशक्त होकर खड़ा होना पड़ेगा उसको रोकने के लिए. गांव में शराब का मुद्दा है तो वो सरकार कुछ नहीं कर सकती, वो तो गांव पे अपने को खड़ा होकर अपने को करना पड़ेगा. तो वो जन भागीदारी और सरकार की सपोर्ट, ये हम कर सकते हैं, जिसके माध्यम से भाई गांव विकसित हो, और गांव विकसित हो तो भाई हमारा छत्तीसगढ़ विकसित हो. ये तो मेरी समझ है, बाकी लोग भी जोड़ सकते हैं इसमें.
सर.
ठीक है सर.
ओके.
एक छोटा सा मुद्दा उसमें यह है कि जिस भी देश ने विकास किया है, वो विकास जो लोकल बॉडी है, उनके गवर्नमेंट्स की जितनी एम्पावरमेंट हम करते हैं, उनको जितना हम सशक्त बनाते हैं, वहाँ पे विकास ज़्यादा होता है. आपने वही मुद्दा कहा. तो अभी तक मैंने जो भी मुद्दे कहे कि आपको दिक्कत क्या आती है, आपको अगर कुछ वहाँ पे कुछ निर्णय लेना है, उस निर्णय लेने के लिए आपको बहुत बार पता ही नहीं होता है कि किस आधार पर मैं निर्णय लूँ, मेरे पास क्या सूचना होनी चाहिए. वो सूचना आपके पास नहीं होती है. आपके पास वो सूचना है तो बहुत बार आपको ये लगता है कि वो अधिकार मेरे पास है कि नहीं, या मुझे किसी और को पूछना है. वो जो लोकल लेवल पे ऑटोनॉमी जिसकी बात करते हैं, वो कहाँ तक हम दे सकते हैं? वो ऑटोनॉमी तब आएगी जब हमारा डेटा में कॉन्फिडेंस बढ़ेगा ऊपर, तो हम उन पे, तो ये भरोसा करने वाली बात है. हमारे यहाँ बहुत बार सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट जो है वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट पे भरोसा करता नहीं है. बहुत बार स्टेट गवर्नमेंट जो लोकल बॉडी पे भरोसा नहीं करता है. हर किसी को लगता है मैं ठीक हूँ. तो ऑटोनॉमी के बारे में, लोकल बॉडी के बारे में कहा जाता है कि ऑटोनॉमी इज़ गुड अप टू माई लेवल, मेरे तक होना चाहिए, मैं आगे नहीं दूंगा, मुझे उन पे विश्वास नहीं. ये विश्वास बदलने की ज़रूरत है ऊपर से, और फिर धीरे धीरे जो है वो जो क्षमता है वो लोकल बॉडी की, वहीं पे उनके लोग कितने किस तरह के होने चाहिए, वो सेंट्रलाइजेशन छोड़ के हमें इसको डिसेंट्रलाइज बनाना तभी होगा जब लोकल लेवल पे ये सारी क्षमताएं तीनों, फाइनेंस लेवल पे, ये HR लेवल पे और डेटा लेवल पे ये बनेगी, तभी वहाँ पे विकास होगा।
ट्रूली सर, अगर हम गुड गवर्नेंस के सुशासन की यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं तो बिल्डिंग ट्रस्ट या विश्वास बढ़ाना बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट अगर होता है तो फिर कहीं भी सुशासन नहीं ला सकते हम। थोड़ा और आगे चर्चा को हम आगे लेके जाते हैं। तो मुद्दा थोड़ा सा इकोनॉमिक्स रिलेटेड भी है, देश के विकास को लेके है। हम बहुत बार सुनते हैं कि स्टार्टअप्स, है ना, एंड इट इज़ अ बज़वर्ड नाउ, स्टार्टअप एवरीवेयर इज स्टार्टअप, लाइक, तो स्टार्टअप्स के लिए क्या चाहिए? And we never think of a ecosystem, promoting the ecosystem. We only think it from a singular perspective. So what exactly government is doing? This is a question to Mr. Rahul Bhagat sir. What exactly the government is thinking in the startup space from the perspective of building an ecosystem for that?
We have just got into engaging with a lot of entrepreneurs, educational institutions, management institutions. सबके साथ हम मिल रहे हैं, अभी चीज़ों को समझ रहे हैं. We are also looking at some good models across the country. You know, maybe some other states like southern states like Karnataka, Andhra, Telangana, Maharashtra, Gujarat, जो इस पे काम कर रहे हैं startups के लिए. And we also strongly believe that creating a good PPP model kind of thing, you know, where we involve private sectors also in creation of these startups. It should not be just a job of government. We should also involve private players, entrepreneurs, and, you know, people who can nurture this startup on a sustainable basis, creating what you call incubation centers or research initiatives, or, you know, consultative forums. And, you know, all these people should come together. In fact, for that purpose, you know, for your information, we have some very good entrepreneurs who are Chhattisgarh based students of IIT, Bhilai, NIT and other government engineering college. ये सभी लोग अभी US में हैं. They are in US, they are in different countries of the world and doing wonderfully well in terms of many initiatives, entrepreneur enterprising results also they are giving in software. So I am getting in touch with all of them. We have made a forum also. It's now like I have met some of them also in my office. I'm just trying to bring all of them together. Some of them are in Bangalore. So, you know, that feeling is also there, that son of soil kind of thing. You know, they want to contribute back to their states. So, unko bhi hum engage kar rahe hain along with IIT, and we are planning to engage IITs and other Indian colleges and private sectors and build incubation centers and create some funding system for them. Already there is a Government of India funding system. Chhattisgarh also had earlier. So we are trying to revive that, and with the effort of all of us, the stakeholders, the government is very much eager to spearhead this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we hope for a grand success for those all initiatives. I think we are coming close to the end of the session. We did touch upon a lot of aspects here. We started with the good governance, the whole of government approach, then we spoke how localization can happen and existing wisdom, the knowledge of the community can be integrated into that. Also, we did deliberate upon data can play a big role in actually engaging in a proactive way. We did had perspectives of academia also from Dr. Varsha madam. I think truly we are moving towards an integrated approach here, because we have international partners, we have development organizations, we have government here, we have academia, and we also have the CSOs. I think through this whole of government approach, we'll definitely be able to achieve the vision of a developed nation by 2047. Thank you for that. I now hand over to my colleague, Divya Negi, to give the word of thanks.
A heartiest thank you to our esteemed panelists for sharing the expertise and vision and for providing us with valuable perspectives on advancing good governance and fostering a whole of government approach for our Viksit Chhattisgarh. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Paridhi Sharma to honor our guests with a small token of love on behalf of Transform Rural India Foundation and IIM Raipur. Please give a big round of applause.